In late 1949, several newspaper articles started circulating around a small farm town in Maryland, reporting of an exorcism. According to this newspaper article, 49 people had witnessed a man hovering above his bed, including 9 priests. A little disclaimer: this story is reportedly the only exorcism in history to have a photo of the victim actually floating. Now, I have found this photo and it will be posted at the end of this podcast. With that being said, let's begin. Roland was born into a Luther German family in 1935 in Cottage City, Maryland. Now, Roland was an only child. His father worked a lot, which made him really close to his Aunt Harriet, who stayed with him. Now, Aunt Harriet was a spiritualist. She introduced Roland to tarot cards, Ouija boards, crystals, and much more. Not much is really known about Roland in his early childhood. From what I've read, most people aren't even sure what his last name is. Roland's story online is kind of told from the perspective of Thomas Allen, who was one of the priests who attended the exorcism. But he was during the St. Louis part of it. And he also has the diary of Father Raymond Bishop, the main priest in the exorcism in St. Louis. As well, he interviewed multiple other priests in Maryland and St. Louis. Now, Roland, at the age of 14, would lose his motherly figure, his Aunt Harriet. With her passing, the household would take a dark turn. Roland and his father would start noticing things moving on their own. At first, it was subtle, but it started being an everyday occurrence. Then, multiple times a day, they would also begin to hear scratching on the walls. A couple of weeks would pass, and the activity grew alarming when Roland would start getting things physically thrown at him. Roland's father would contact their local church. A Luther by the name of Miles would come to the home. After determining that Roland's case could very well be possession, Luther Miles asked Roland's father if Roland could stay the night at Luther Miles' home. Roland and his father agreed. They would pack up their things and go to the Luther's home. Now, our story here takes a rather interesting turn. While at the Luther's house, Luther Miles would see objects levitating and be thrown at Roland and his father, as well as hearing what he described as hellish growls coming from the walls. When Luther Miles consulted with some of his colleagues, they would be very skeptical of him and accuse him of over-exaggeration. Luther would help Roland and his father get into contact with Catholic priest Edward Hughes. Now, Father Edward Hughes has an extensive background in exorcisms and has been part of the Catholic Church his whole life. Father Hughes would perform several exorcisms on Roland. Eventually, Father Edwards would admit Roland to Georgetown University Hospital, where he would conduct one more exorcism. Roland would be strapped to a bed. Father Hughes would start praying over Roland. Roland would break out of his restraints and break a spring off the bed that he was strapped to and attempt to impale Father Hughes. Luckily, he would miss Father Hughes, but slashed Father Hughes' arms in the process. Father Hughes would immediately halt all further help. That would make Roland and his father desperate for help. Eventually, they would be contacted by Roland's cousin in St. Louis, and Roland's cousin would connect them with Raymond Bishop in St. Louis. Roland and his father would travel there the very next day. Father Raymond would immediately admit Roland into the South City Hospital. Him and other witnesses would witness flying objects and guttural voices coming from Roland. He would even speak Latin to them. They would perform multiple exorcisms, and none of them would work. Desperation began to be felt throughout the hospital. Roland's case was growing more and more public in his hometown. That's when Father Bishop would call another priest. That priest's name is Father William Bowdern. Now, one thing about Father Bowdern, he has never performed an exorcism, but he is well known throughout the Catholic Church in St. Louis. This would be Father Bowdern's first official exorcism and his final exorcism, which would require help from multiple sources. As everyone began, Roland would start shouting and shaking. Marks would start to appear on his body. The priest in the room would hold him down and start praying over him. Father Bowden would say that anytime he mentioned a saint or a saint's name, that more marks would appear on Roland. Roland would grow even more violent. Candles in the room would start literally blowing up and being thrown from where they sat. Also, a vase would be thrown at Father Bowden. Now, this is where Roland would break free of his restraints and start levitating in front of everyone. A few moments later, he would fall to his bed unconscious. Not much is really known about what happened after, except one interview I found that Father Bowden said Roland would go on living a normal and healthy life after everything he just endured. Now, I have not been able to find any interviews with Roland whatsoever. Also, whenever you research this story, there is a lot of conflicting stories out there. My story is just wrote based on what was most consistent. Now, I was able to find interviews with witnesses. Looking into their stories, I'd say I've found witnesses who say the story is 100% real, and witnesses who say that Roland was nothing more than a bully looking for attention. One of the witnesses stuck out to me the most, however. His name was Mark. He was a witness to multiple of the exorcisms. Now, if it was in Maryland or St. Louis, I'm unsure. I couldn't find any information on that. But he says that he never heard any strange voices coming from Roland, and Roland was just throwing tantrums looking for attention. Also, he says Roland was not speaking Latin. He was mocking the Latin words right after the priest would say them. But I'll let you be the judge of that. My question is, if this isn't real, how do they fake the levitation and also get 50 other hospital professionals to go along with it and receive no benefit for doing so? I'll let you be the judge of that one as well. Let me know in the comments below what you think really happened. Or if you would like to make a video suggestion, I would definitely appreciate that. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.